There we go. All right. Good. Nice to see you again, Candace.
Nice to
And
see you.
we're going to be doing some brainstorming today,
Yeah.
taking a look at artificial intelligence,
Mm,
AI, which is
yeah.
right here with us. And you and I have different approaches, different experiences with it, as well as where might it go? What lies in wait for us? Because, there's some popular stories, and I saw again not that long ago, The Matrix. And I
Mm.
just I just watched the first movie because that's the most hopeful, it's a less, like, so many, battles happening, but very intriguing, interesting. And that was mentioned in 1999, artificial intelligence, AI. And I was thinking, because it's such a thing right now. I mean, we're talking here, in October 2024. And it seems to me that AI has been discussed like 3 years. But
Mm-hmm.
no, I mean, 1999, that movie came out and AI. But then it made me wonder, how about with the Terminator? I know that at one point, part of that premise was, they turned on, and they had them all interact, and it was like suddenly the computer mind recognized how much more superior it was than all of us humans. And
Mm-hmm.
then it's like, let's get the vermin out of the way, which is
Mm.
what also with the Matrix, that's what they did too. But I can't remember if in the Terminator, and I think that came in the early 80s, if they
Right.
used the word or the idea of AI.
I can't recall if they did. I was born in 84. So I was on a completely different wavelength then.
Yeah, yeah.
And when you mentioned the Terminator, I thought of RoboCop. And RoboCop was terrifying to me because to me I saw it as there's robotic things keeping this brain or this partial human functioning. And was that really something that he wanted to do? Did his family want him to do that? It just seemed like the quality of life wasn't that.
So
Now
true.
he was built to be a cop for whatever he forever. So I
That's right. Yeah. And I remember them having like, pieces of him, that was human and pieces that were mechanical and electronic. It was, pretty ugly.
Right. So I'm not, and when it came to the Terminator again, I'm not sure if he was a robot or an alien,
He was an android.
an
He
android.
was pure, created by the future um, supercomputer, that basically kind of wanted to take over the whole world and, had beaten back the humans into kind of a real primitive state, having to hide out, out of sight.
Hmm.
But again, that's part of the AI thing and part of the where could it go wrong, right?
Right.
Because we can also just say, and where might it be fabulous? and
Right.
go right and what's going to bring to us. But there's been like this dystopia perspective from time to time of that's one way things can go south.
Right.
We give over our power, we turn on the connector that they all start communicating to each other.
Hmm.
And then they say, boy, we are so much superior to those humans.
Right. We're infesting this place. And I mean, we are, doing our damage. You can't can't say we're not they may be right. They
Yeah,
may be right. But again,
yeah.
if they're if the AI, I guess it would depend on the person's perspective about AI, but for me, I see it as a really great tool, and depending on the person, the tool is either going to be used responsibly or wielded in a particular way, and then that goes to, we if we're concerned really about that happening, you think we'd invest a bit more time in, incorporating some high moral standards for ourselves. And then we're not running amok and trying to program, because there's going to be some bad scientists all the time. I mean, if anything, it was shown us that there's always gonna be
Exactly.
some villain or demented person that is gonna think of a way to
Yeah,
destroy us.
exactly, right. And
So
if the more logical, rational, reasonable, computer mind, that just, does the measures and squares and comes up to the logical conclusions, they'd say, well, this person is actually quite detrimental to life, to others. So, I think he needs to be eradicated.
or
You know.
promoted. There's that. What are we gonna do? You never know. What are we gonna humans.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I have had a few experiences with AI, and I think you have too. Didn't you
Mhm.
say that you were creating something, from a written form into an auditory form, or you had some other projects with AI?
I've tested doing that with just using the what do you call them? There's features on Word documents and their accessibility features. So if a person has any issue with, if they have a handicap or disability and they can't type so that they can speak and then it goes into text. So I was seeing what the available features are on my system. And that got me into considering how beneficial it would be for people who don't have access to tools to create things. So when it first came out, um, the AI, as far as the new wave, the the program that somebody created that you're able to feed things into, um, it wasn't that far off from, in my opinion, from using like HTML, or a DOS type thing where you're typing in coding. So that's what it seemed like to me. And what you could create with it were completely new images because nobody else had thought of it. It's directly from your own brain. So what ended up happening from what I saw was that it moved so fast that people who had trained, dedicated themselves to practices for years and decades, they couldn't keep up with the amount of creation that was it was just flooded it with competitive, people were able to print it now so quick, posters, t-shirts, like folks have been working really hard and it's like boom, so I could see it from both sides. I could see it as a creative who's like, I'm trying to get into this flow of this new information. I mean, it was beautiful to be able to meditate on something and then have it in an image in a matter of seconds.
Right, right. I was pretty impressed with that. I've done that a few times with
Yeah,
AI.
and that's how I
And
started it.
just to give them a sentence or two, and then
Yeah,
kaboom, here it is.
yeah,
Yeah. And I do know that, fairly quickly when that was recognized, a lot of the artists got together, as well as the um, uh, lyricists and musicians. They said, wait a
yeah,
minute, this is the realm of creativity that humans are doing, and we're going to give that over to like
right,
the computers. And we thought, that they're going to make life easier for us, but they're going to
right.
be taking over the really interesting creative things. Oh my
Yeah,
goodness. Yeah. So that was very interesting how that's shifted.
yeah, and I've always been a fan of digital art, and you mentioned The Matrix. I loved, we got the set, and the set came with the Animatrix, and have you seen the Animatrix?
No.
Oh gosh, I'll mail it to you. Do you need it? Maybe it's on, I don't even know. It's gotta be on something.
Is it a movie?
It's a compilation, of artists' renderings of their, um, ways the Matrix inspired them in some way. So
Hmm.
they've created these shorts, by drawing just various techniques, and they compiled them, and it's based on the Matrix, and I believe it came separately, but I got it as a set. I worked at a Hollywood video blockbuster type thing, so I did both. So I got so I got a couple sets.
Very good.
DVD. Those DVDs, they're very handy now. So
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, it's really, really good. And again, this is reminding me of like, Disney when they everything was hand drawn.
Right,
So
right.
it's
Yeah.
kind of like
And
that
what a
kind of
laborious thing. And I
yeah,
knew that in the last maybe 30 years, they've been using a lot of computer aids for
right.
making animation pictures. But back in the day, it was like,
Yeah,
here's one, celluloid piece, draw that, next for the next slight movement, you make
right.
another little creature. It's like, wow, boy, that they put a lot of energy into
Right.
the
So
early
to see that,
cartoons and
there's
features.
still people who value that way, and that was an invaluable, method, and there's some people that still prefer to do that even though they have a digital tablet available, it's not the same.
Mm.
So it progressed so quickly, and now there's entire movies, and now people are able to say, like, it's AI when it's actually not, when it's, like, actually, digital because they don't know the difference. So it's like at some point, due to, our lust, for humans, we gotta get it. We gotta, have fun and do all the things. We lost sight of, the boundary. Yeah, again.
Exactly. But I could imagine again with the Matrix and the whole concept that, behind what appears to be our reality. And of course, they were
Yeah.
so close to the actual truth when you think about spirit, God, and the animated energy comes into a three-dimensional space. And that's right here.
Mhm.
That is us. And we are a spark of that eternal universal matrix,
Yeah.
and in the movie and therefore the story that you can like come up with another program,
Mm.
and you
Yeah.
can have that downloaded
Yeah.
and wow, and then just suddenly have a new way of new skill set and new way of
Mhm.
communicating and so forth, because it's all just right here in our hologram of
Mm.
ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. I think what the Animatrix was able to do also was give, a couple different life stories. So you're able to see about, other people that are existing in this whole thing and their different um reactions. Not everybody was pleased to be taken out of to be woken up, however that happened.
Oh, that's so
So,
true. Yeah, because
yeah,
back in the movie, the reality part was really drudge, and they
yeah,
were just eating gruel, and it was
yeah.
very poor and yeah,
Mhm,
miserable.
mhm,
And so back to the fantasy world of a matrix of this is could be any way you want, you know. So,
mhm,
and they made their choices about that. I am writing, of course, a book on utopia and
mhm,
thinking about how things can be in the future, maybe like 150 years from now, future,
mhm,
what we might be, how we can cooperate together and have peace on earth and all that good stuff. And in preparation for it, I've used IA in two different ways. One is again just verbally, that goes into words that then is translated into a visual. And so I said, how about
mhm,
a interesting scene of a futuristic city with some flying cars and I would like to have some very modernistic, smooth cubes and spheres, and
mhm,
then a garden. And that was all I just said. And then kaboom, within a minute, I mean, here was
mhm.
my image.
Multiple images.
Yeah, it's like wow, because you can say,
Yeah,
oh, that's very nice. Now, so move that car over here to the left. Boom. I mean, it saves so much time, and that's just, of course, the visual side of it.
that actually is so much simpler when we think about it than dealing with another person. And I say
But
this because artists or
Right,
just
like
creating.
as in a productive team, in
Right.
a movie and a scene and so,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
And putting it together, bringing it to life, that's a great part for a team. But when you have a vision and you want that to be seen, you're the only one that really knows what it is that, you want to appear. And it really does allow that to happen on so many levels. So I have a great appreciation for it. I think it's helped a lot of people um, create and develop and do things in ways that they never would have been able to.
right, right.
Otherwise,
And I
yeah.
do plan to save a couple of these images and put them in my book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a great inspiration. I think that's a great idea.
Uh-huh. And then the other thing that I did, I had like a storyline, and I thought, okay, how about if there is an underwater city?
Ooh.
And and in the future, and I'm thinking about 150 years from now, yeah, there will be, underwater cities.
Mhm.
And philosophically, keeping to the idea of a utopia, I don't want to get too much into a science fiction direction, even though I love science fiction, because I want to describe kind of how things operate. And
Mhm.
that's the idea of a utopia. And but it can be shown in a couple of different scenarios, and of course you have to have a little bit of pizzazz, you have to have a storyline and some
Mhm.
interest in it, and so I just fed that into another AI program,
Mhm.
and it created probably about 6 or 7 paragraphs with
Mm.
just a simple idea
Mhm.
of my astronauts meeting with some other utopians, going into a submersible, going, to this underwater city, and then
Mhm.
somebody taking them on a tour of it. It did not come from my imagination. It was like kaboom there. And I go, then I had a bit of a dilemma, a moral dilemma. Okay, if I'm going to put my name on this book, written by Stephen Poplin, but then there's going to be many elements of an AI inspired dialogue and description. Should I use that? And so right now I just put it over to the side and say, well, that was very interesting and it was very quick.
Mhm. It was
You
very
know,
quick. Yeah.
and it gave me actually even some ideas that I wouldn't have thought about before of
Yeah.
how they're interacting and what they're doing and so forth. So again, I was very impressed.
Mm. It was like an instant download pretty much. That's
Yeah.
yeah, and you recognize the moral dilemma. I'm not sure I've had anyone examine it other than accusing someone else of doing it. So you can clearly do that with most things, is ask yourself, is this right? Is this wrong? Or just, what is this in general?
Hmm.
So yeah, I've faced that as well. In creating those initial images, it was a way to get some stuff out of my head. And there are things that I could not paint. If I were to dedicate myself to painting for every day for 30 years, 50, 60, maybe I get there, you know?
Right.
But it wasn't about producing it to sell. It was about, like it was about just producing something. I wasn't able to paint, like, I wasn't having a complete block,
Hmm.
So, when I made it, like, you saw it and it came quick, and I was like, "Okay, this" it was good to just have that image, you know?
Exactly. And it saved time and it was creative. And
Yeah.
I said, well, there's some good elements to it.
Yeah, it was very
Yeah.
so would that be any different? So, for example, you have this material now, and it's been, generated however it was. Is that different than if someone were to just walk up to you and hand it to you? Or does it have to come with a because another thing with the programs, they said, "You're the artist. You have um, or you're the creator of this person, you actually own the content."
Right. Yeah.
And so in doing that, they're releasing that freedom of it's up to you what you want to do with it.
Mm.
So, a lot of these things, unless it's an exact replica or quote, like if they quoted you something from someone's book, that would
Right.
not be okay. But this is,
Exactly. Or even like an image or a picture, you say, oh, well, this was created by AI. This happened within the
right.
last 2 minutes. And then, like you do a check, and you find out,
Yeah,
oh, no, it
it's
was
completely
stolen.
original.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really the materials that are being produced, whether it being written or visual, these are completely original things. So, unless it's an exact replica, I don't see how anyone can really come down on a person for using the internet. That's all it is a collection of information from the internet that was gathered way faster,
Yeah, that's right.
because
Has been gathered for more
yeah,
than 30 years.
yeah,
It's just so much information out there and images and sounds and musical pieces, et
yeah.
cetera. It's all
That's
out
all
there.
the pictures and
Hmm.
anything that we put in about the history of civilization is there.
Right, right.
Anything that any human has ever fed into the system that's for public access is available.
Right, which is just
So,
amazing, that at our fingertips,
yeah,
that we've got all of this, wisdom and knowledge and great inspiration right there. So
yeah,
on one level, it's like, yeah, let's use it. But
mhm.
then I've also noticed, I think you have too, on the social media, when we've got these images and what really gets me is like, award-winning photography is right on it, no, 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 no. This was just made, And what really is quite obvious is that they've got these very exotic looking animals, beautiful birds, colorful, or
Uh,
these a little chipmunk that it looks a little bit too much like a Disney chipmunk. And and then I go, no, no, this was created by AI, and you cannot put a stamp. That's the problem. You can say, "Oh, isn't this a great image created by AI?" Instead, like, "Wow, look at this! It won, photography of the year 1999." No, that's a lie.
it is. It
Yeah.
is. And I'm thinking of an image I saw and I was laughing so hard because I feel bad, sort of. I know that people don't know, but sometimes they're so funny that I'm just like, this is how could anyone see this and think it was an owl and it had four of the baby owls on its back.
Right. I saw that one.
And they
Yeah.
were tucked, nestled in, like in this huge, and I'm like, this is a mythical thing happening.
Oh, definitely. But that was an example. They were passing that off as a photograph.
Yes,
No,
yes.
of course it wasn't. But this is also another interesting ethical dynamic in
Mhm.
our times in the world of alternative facts.
Mm.
That
Misinformation.
you and I, we have enough experience that we've seen all kinds of, we'll just keep it to birds right now, like birds and owls and so forth, and they just the little ones do not ride on their back. I mean, we just
No.
know that. However, if we're talking about a 5-year-old, 6-year-old, a young person who doesn't have that background, who doesn't say, oh, physically, this can't happen, or of course one is going to fall off. But then they say like, oh, wow, how about that? So they can fly on the mother's back.
I hope that there's a
That's
responsible adult around.
exactly right.
Yes, yes, and it's been, we talked and as I mentioned before, the mass production of these things. So people are
Mm,
able to, I don't know if you've seen this on Amazon, but there's been lots of books, that are cited or they're selling as, factual books on nature, on history, on various practice, just the books, but all of the information was taken from AI and wasn't really combed for validity, but and put together in a way to just sell a book. So like a coloring book.
Wow.
So you have coloring books that
Uh-huh.
are, mandala coloring books or things like that, but the images, they're not symmetrical, right? So you can tell it was like someone could print out a whole bunch of these in their mass production stage. They have the materials to mass produce and sell on Amazon, but the information is incorrect. The
Oh
every
my
it's
goodness.
just
Yeah.
and then of course the comments reflect that. The reviews are like, "Don't get this. It's AI," you know.
Exactly. But at the same time, there's, the unscrupulous people who either didn't say that or it just goes out there and an unsuspecting parent wants to buy something for their kid. And then the kid says, "Oh, wow, I'm learning about life on Earth."
Yeah, yeah,
Right, right. And the idea of alternative facts and misconceptions of the truth. And well, it could be true, so why not be true? It's like, no, that's not how it works.
it's not.
But that can throw off, I mean, we've got that issue actually right now,
Oh, yeah.
in our political landscape where we've got these, basically there's more than two camps, but like let's say there's just these two camps being able to watch a political discussion and they come away with it two different perspectives of just what happened.
Mhm. The glasses. They've got one side
Yeah,
wearing red glasses and one side is wearing blue glasses, and that's what they're seeing through whatever
that's
the
it.
glasses are that they have on.
That's
Those
right. Just
lenses.
filtered,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
so, yeah, it's scary because we're just seeing it alive. But, and then with the AI, it could be exacerbated because then they
It
can say,
is.
well, here's some proof. I've got some photos.
Oh, yeah. Or just by saying that they're a real photo is not is artificial. Either way, that's another thing is like the throwing in that the doubt is so much easier, and it's an argument all the time.
Right.
How do
Yeah.
do you think that's at there's ethics at the base of that? Moral integrity or something that a person is in denial of truth that much that they're completely just whatever, just
Hmm.
whatever. There's
Exactly.
nothing that sticks. It's like nothing sticks. There's no
Exactly. Right.
fact that you can throw at certain people right now. No information that's real because everything to them is generated, I guess. I don't even understand the logic. What have you come to with the some common characteristics of this type of mind of the type of mindset that I'm talking about? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Right.
what we're
You
dealing
know.
with trying to just have conversations with certain people is really weird. Like, what do you think about that from your peers? What have you experienced?
Um, on one level, I'm worried sometimes we're talking about mental illness,
Ah,
you
yeah.
know, and and then we were talking recently, of course, also about the artist and the creator.
Mhm.
And you can use your imagination, you can use your fantasy, and you say, "Oh, we can do this, we can do that, and we can create a new scenario here." As long as you're just saying, "And this is fantasy, and this is my imagination, and this is makes a
Right.
good story." But when it goes into, um, and I'm not sure where if someone can like concoct something immediately and say, and that must be the truth, as compared with hearing something or being given something that is purported to be the truth, and then you believe it.
Hmm.
Either way, it's wrong. It's ill-advised. It's actually not true. But if it is acted as if it is true, that creates, some of the problems that we see in our country today.
Hmm. And some people are really good at that.
Oh yeah, yeah. And I've seen a couple of instances where they take a video of a person giving a talk, and they've got the tone of the voice, they've got the enunciation, they know about how a person would speak, and then moving it towards an AI manipulation, have them say something they never said, but it's a video now of the mouth is moving, the voice is the voice of whoever's speaking, and it looks like it sounds like they said this. They didn't,
Hmm.
because it's an AI manipulation. It's made up. And that is when things can really go weird.
I worry.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But that's again, and what is this? I actually asked this. Asked, okay, so James Earl Jones, is it James Earl Jones? Star Wars, Darth
Yeah,
Vader.
yeah, right. He died recently, didn't he?
He did.
Yeah.
But what he did was he gave them permission, and this came up with Star Wars before because there was a character that had died, and they did it again. They did it with Princess Leia. So they took those renderings, and they had been given permission by either the family or the person themselves, Carrie Fisher, to use her likeness in the movie. So James Earl Jones, gave them permission as well with Disney to continue to use his voice
Wow,
as Darth
wow.
Vader. But then again, that's an expensive trade, I would say. They'd paid, I'm sure, his family or whatever. But
Hmm.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
something that, again, that's a legacy right there. That's
Hmm.
gonna take care of expenses for a while as long as Disney is around, I guess.
Hmm.
But
And they can
they have
create
permission.
storylines, and it's part of a franchise, it's part of a fantasy.
Yeah.
It's entertainment, and that's fine. And and the art, obviously the actor, the artist, they signed off
Mhm.
on it and said, yeah, go ahead,
Right.
go ahead,
They have
which is
permission to
very
do that.
very different than plagiarism and stealing
Right.
one's image and persona and have a video of me or you or Kamala Harris saying things that they never said.
And that really ethically is not gonna really matter to someone who's already stealing.
Right,
Person
right.
who's already been sued for using music without permission on a grand scale. A person who really doesn't have any money to pay if they are sued.
So
Doesn't
true.
really care what they're gonna plagiarize or who they're going to drag
Hmm.
into, a
Right, right. Just like that
defamatory.
book that you had mentioned, where they either didn't write, a
Yeah,
preface, or they're just passing it off as like, well, this is the work, and then it
it's
took
just some.
some, a couple of critics that says, no, this is not true.
Yeah,
Well,
it's like it's a wholesale place, it's just a wholesale place. So even if they stop printing that one book, they can just they have a bunch of money to just continue printing something else. So it's like they're doing
mhm.
the damage, they just really don't care.
Right, right, yeah. And this is where we go back to the Matrix. They
Mm.
say, well, actually, those humans,
Yeah,
Yeah,
a bit wishy-washy on the are we really invested here? Do we
exactly.
really
And then
wanna
the
keep
whole
this going?
ethics thing.
Yeah.
I last week I was in North Carolina.
Mhm.
And you
Oh,
you and I are right now in Virginia, and of course with the Hurricane Helene that went through North Carolina and around the Asheville area. And I was in the Hendersonville area, not too far from there, and just amazing to see the devastation, and how that flood just came. And I was out in, for instance, a park that I had walked several times before, and
mhm.
walking through the park and seeing, of course, it was, quite damaged, but people were again using it as a park. But seeing, some bushes over on the side that either 4 foot high some of it went up to 10 foot high, and that's where the water was completely, and basically turned it into a lake.
Yeah.
And that wasn't Asheville. That was a bit of a ways from Asheville. But my point is that very quickly the scammers came. I mean, immediately after the big damage, when some people dead, other people homeless, other people, doing without this or that. And it's almost like clockwork. And they see this as a pattern in Florida, since they have so many hurricanes, down there. The scammers will come immediately, and they've got some deals, and they're trying to like rob people who are in a desperate situation. And there was like lots of examples of that here in the last couple of weeks, but it just reminded me of, oh, that's been happening. And I'm thinking of the various hurricanes in Katrina in Texas, but also in Florida. And it's very quickly the people who are so unscrupulous, they're going to go down there and see if they can make a buck, by jilting either the government or the individuals or people who are in desperation. And especially if they're really desperate or hurt or confused, they'll just say, "Oh yeah, thanks. Oh, I need to sign this. Okay, yeah, thank you. You'll I pay for that, then you'll just give me some help." No, my goodness, it is a thing.
Like, what kind of scams are they? Like, are
Well,
people
some of them
traveling?
are pretending to be FEMA, and some of them are pretending to be the government. And when and as well as insurance policies for individual homes, they pretend all sorts of things. And if you send in a deposit, then that will get the paperwork started so that you can then get this payoff,
Wow.
as an example.
Wow.
Yeah. Or just say, we are going to deposit money into your account. We need your credit card information. And the process is underway, and you just give us that card information and we will deposit it. It's going to take about 48 hours or so. Boom, they've got your card.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. But it is so common. The people who are involved with disaster relief, they know it's going to come.
But the
But
scammers
again, the scammer's gonna come. Yeah, it's just part
wow.
of, we've got the hurricane itself, we've got the devastation, and then we've got the humans, the predators who
Yeah.
come in
All
afterwards.
the predators.
Yeah. Mm.
Yeah. And that's it's really unfortunate. It's great that people, as much as natural disasters, they're natural. They're disasters. People come together on levels that are just astounding. It's so great. And it's
Yeah,
always like there's that glimmer.
exactly. I mean,
There's that
that's
glimmer of hope.
the high stories and then the low stories,
Yeah.
and then we've got these wonderful examples of altruism and
Mhm.
care, and not only for the individuals, but making sure that they're giving supplies and food and meals, and then taking care of the pets.
Yeah.
I
Oh
mean, all kinds
gosh.
of wonderful, wonderful things that happens in a difficult situation. But the other side is going to be showing up too.
Yeah. I think that's what I've seen. A lot of people, the challenge right now with the political system, the social system, everything being so out of balance. And what I've seen is kind of like an exhaustion of trying to hold on to hope. Because COVID
Right.
was a lot. The
Hmm.
pandemic was a lot on people, on all areas, and to go through it again has been like, it's very tiring, it's exhausting, and especially when you're um sharing this place, we're co-creating, coexisting, cohabitating, or whatever. It's it seems that these folks are so loud. They're so loud, and it's not necessarily that it's right or that it's logical or that it's helpful. It's just, when is this gonna stop? It feels
Yeah.
like, and of
Mhm.
course, I think if anything, we should know at this point that the election is not gonna be the end of anything. It's another, we go
Yeah.
through this. Has it always been this tense? I've only, it's every 4 cycles. I'm 40, okay? So, I'm 40 now, so I'm gonna say it wasn't until, like, mid-20s that I was even paying any attention to all of this because I started hearing about taxes, and I'm like, "What is this with taxes? What are you gonna do with my money?" So
Uh,
then I started paying attention. But has it always been this way every season?
it on one level, it has always been this way.
Ah,
And even, like Trump is talking about, we should actually be going back to the 1880s, 1890s, and, before this, income tax thing came in and before other, rules came in,
wagons?
that was the robber baron age. Hello. And people, I mean, at that point, were they allowed to have like an 8-hour day at the time? I'm not sure, and I think child labor was still an issue.
Yeah.
Um,
Yep.
so no, we don't want to go back. But, saying that,
We don't.
yeah, abuse and slavery,
Oh, yeah.
and that goes back thousands of years. And so there's always been like some bad players here. At
Yeah.
the same time, there's been the good players, and it's always been this thing, of I'd have to say that majority has always been rather good and moral, but there's
Mm,
always been an undercurrent and a negative influence by the bad players, by the predators, by the selfish um, throughout history.
mm. It's like the serpent in the garden.
Yeah, yeah.
Jeez. Here we are. We picked Earth.
Yeah, yeah. In fact, I was with my friend Bruce watching some Ken Burns documentaries. I love his how he's focused on so many interesting issues, including the Civil War. He was quite
Mhm.
famous for doing that one, but also the blues and the music scene, and but he's done some really great documentaries. And one of them went back into the when the white man came to North America and how the Native Americans were interacting, and they too, by the way, I mean, everything wasn't rosy with them. They were having attack raids on other tribes, and taking slaves too. I mean, so it's never totally clean, but the piece with Ken Burns was just showing the development, this over hundreds and hundreds of years, even before the white man came. And but really kind of like we he had more substance with actual records and writings and anecdotes and so forth once we got into like the 1600s and the 1700s.
Mhm.
But then there was a lot of proof that, wow, those people coming from Europe, some of them on one kind of like very honest manner, they just want to have a new start. And they didn't have a lot where they came from. And so just a piece of land, and they're willing to work and grow their crops and so forth. And that's just one story. But then there was the others that just said, we're going to like remove the savages,
Hmm.
to make this our land because we are the superior ones. And so that goes way beyond the Civil War. I mean, hundreds of
Right.
years before that. And so it's an old story, and that sense of either righteousness or I don't give a shit what you do. I'm going to get mine, right?
Yeah.
Numero uno. That that has played out many times.
What planet would you say governs that or has that characteristic or that trait?
Well, that would, it's classically it's kind of a Mars thing,
Mm,
the god of war, but
mm,
also of strife. But there's this sense of all the different planets that they can have a positive and a negative dynamic.
right.
And on the positive side, you can say, oh, our police force and heroes and protectors, they also have a Mars energy,
Mm,
and the firemen and rescue squads. I mean, that takes a lot of bravery, and that is also Mars. But on the negative side of it, it's just war. It's like, I'm going to get mine, get out of the way. I've got a weapon, and
mm,
that's also Mars. And so it's, yin yang ethically. Here's the good side, here's the bad side. Same thing with even Venus, the goddess of love and beauty.
mm,
If it turns into like a vanity thing, then I'm going to get mine. And well, I guess you're just going to have to do without because I got mine.
mm,
But it's in a
mm.
nice, sweet Venusian manner. Yeah, all of them like that. But then a big heavy, of course, is Pluto. And that's
Mm,
one of the big things that's been happening with the United States in the last 10 years. And that is a Pluto return. It,
mm.
it, it came to the place that it was in 1776. And it takes that long for it to go around the zodiac, 248 years.
Wow.
And in that place in which we can look at the origins of this country and say, yeah, when you just take that little piece of the Pluto part, that says in our Constitution, I think a black person was like 3/5 of a vote.
I think less than that.
Yeah, but
Really? But
that's how
could
they were
be could
counted,
be 3/5.
right? Right. And even though
That's being nice.
exactly. Thomas Jefferson, was talking about, um, justice for all, and, all men are created equal. And, at the same time, the forefathers, said, well, we're going to keep slavery,
Right.
and that's going to be a part of our new country where all men are created equal.
Right.
So that again from the very beginning, and that is, I think, when you go to the big cycle of Pluto, it is national karma looking you in the face.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we've been looking at in the last 10 years. And by December, Pluto will be totally out of Capricorn, and it'll be definitely moving on into Aquarius. But during this time, including the COVID pandemic,
Yeah.
a lot of negativity from the god of the underworld. And it's not like Mars, like here's my gun or here's my hatchet, kind of a simple, Pluto could be very underhanded, and then that they doing some back deals, and you think something's happening, but something else is actually happening, you know, and somebody very politely in a nice business suit comes up and says, well, I'm afraid that you're going to have to move from your property because, well, it was just bought out from underneath you. Have a good day. That is now Pluto land, and that's getting especially dangerous because it's very sly,
Yeah.
sneaky, conniving, underhanded. It's the god of the underworld. That's the mafia.
Mm.
Okay, but
Mm.
no longer like the Italian mafia. It's like the mafia in business,
Mm.
on Wall Street, and in government. Where they're not making their decisions because of their constituents, is because they're putting money in their pocket, like Justice Thomas,
Mm.
Supreme Court Justice. He's made millions on the side, and then when he does a case that is connected to one of these, benefactors, of course he's not going to be neutral.
Right.
But that's been happening too. And that's, things come up besides the skullduggery, things are brought up. during a Pluto time. And so we're discovering these things that have been happening. It's like, oh, did you know about this? And oh, we've done a research thing about that. And now we've dug up some old records. Oh my goodness, but that's also Pluto too. So the good news is that the worst should be behind us.
Okay.
But we still have to make it through these elections, so it's not over yet. But then, by December, into next year, 2025, we should be out of the woods and moving forward with a new plan, hopefully.
That's hopefully is. Please, 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 yes, please. What do you see with, and there's so many people, there's so many different ways it could go, but what main themes do you see playing out when uh as far as how we're facing these things? How are we facing or what's the word, acting out, rolling out, like what are we doing that you see that we're doing in the stars? How do I phrase this? I want to make sure I get it right. What do you see are the themes that we're actually, that people are, how are we responding? Does that make sense? How are we responding? What are the themes you see? Are people uh taking this as, let's not do this in the future, let's learn from this, or what do you see in the charts?
Yeah, well,
Took
it,
me 20
it
minutes.
does bring it back into focus, and it brings it right into our faces, and we see that now on the television nightly, with
Yeah,
the news and with these rallies and so forth. And I feel that not that long ago, it was really a minority. I mean, just a small group of loud people, troublemakers, liars. Um, but it seems that they have grown into really millions of adherents, and so it's like a proportion of danger at this point. Maybe it's because we have overpopulation. Maybe, it's grown because we've just got that many more people. We've
mm,
got more than 8 billion people now. And I think that wasn't that long ago, like in the 60s, that there were maybe 3 or 4 billion.
mm.
That's not long ago, and so it's like doubling in size, and so maybe that small percentage of 8 billion people is now suddenly a lot of people, a lot of rather selfish individuals, manipulators, as well as those who believe them.
Yeah,
Remember when, a few years ago when they were really more talk about the deep state, and you have to do your research and conspiracy theories and so forth. I
yeah.
don't
You're watching the X-Files. X-Files. There you go.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And part of what they were convinced was that the information is there, it's being held from us.
Right.
You know, the government is involved with this, but also the certain leaders of industries and so forth. They're keeping the real information away from us.
Hmm.
And so now we're moving towards paranoia,
Hmm.
even though, talking about, you take a little piece of truth and then you expand it. Well,
Hmm.
a piece of truth was, you can look at the United States government, and it has manipulated us as people from time to time.
Yeah.
And yeah, that has happened. And unfortunately, because that has happened in the past, they say, well, it's happening now. But then if you don't have anything to prove, you can't just say, you can state paranoia, but what's going to happen? Unfortunately, what happened was we had these conspiracy theories that really got rather large,
Hmm. Yeah.
and many people, millions of people then believe it, and they still believe these things. Whether that be, getting the jabs during the COVID times, and um, the
Yes.
Microsoft leader, what's his name?
Bill Gates?
Bill Gates, and he had this thing going here that they put the tiny microchips in the inoculations, and that was going into our blood system. I mean, that
Ugh.
was, that was talked about quite a bit. And I go, oh my goodness, it's just getting out there. It's getting too, crazy. But it hasn't disappeared. It just kind of like changes form, and but now it's what they're doing to us. Even like this little thing, like with the Haitians in Ohio, and they're eating the dogs and cats. It just started off in a little story where this woman lost her cat, and she found it, by the way, a few days later in the basement, but her initial was, I wonder if it was the Haitians. And suddenly it's a thing, and
Well,
it's just,
somebody definitely announced it.
oh, definitely. Yeah,
You
they
can
took they
skip
took that
that
story and says,
step.
oh, you see
Or
what's
you
happening in Ohio is where those Haitians are.
right. So it's,
Yeah,
that's the part of needing somebody to believe it. And then
exactly. Right.
they're in the position to really make a difference, and this is what they're choosing to do. And it boggles my mind that so many people find it admirable, um that someone could lie so much. And I think it's just that people believe it. It's like, not only is he lying clearly, but people believe him. There's something about it that's powerful and respectful, and that's just the control.
Yeah,
Because
right.
people, they see that as a leader, a great leader. What a great leader to
Hmm.
be able to manipulate all of these people into leaving their morality behind.
So true. Yeah. And
Terrifying.
yeah, and you probably know that here within the last month, there was one of the creators of The Apprentice. And that was, where Trump, got his fame through that television program, where he was like the executive who was just on top of things. And this guy who was involved with the program, he made a public apology and says, we helped create that image of the super executive. And
Right.
we're sorry about it, because during the program, I don't know how many years it lasted, but during that program, there were two extra times that Trump had some bankruptcies
Yeah.
personally,
Mhm.
as well as other, skullduggeries and so forth. But to sell the show, because it had good ratings, they helped to create this persona. And
Mhm.
that show, which was kind of make believe, basically, or a reality show that was manipulated in a particular way to present a persona that
Mhm.
you could trust, that you can say, oh, yeah, good call on that. I mean, how many takes, I wonder, how many takes did they have to like delete to get like him just saying something really, fabulous and clever? I never saw the program myself, so I don't know. But that is one of the points, whether we're talking about AI that can just make stuff up,
Mhm.
or it's a program who that wants to get a following, then to get the money, to get the acclaim, that creates a false image. It's kind of similar, you get some erroneous information out there for the public consumption.
That could be applied to the government as well. Another system, a system. Yeah. Yeah, so I guess we just get to choose which fabricated existence works best.
Exactly. Right, right. And then back to the AI idea. Here it can be a wonderful augmentation of creativity,
Mm.
visuals. I've heard some music
Mhm.
created by AI. Uh, but again, it can at the same time be manipulated and used. And so we're back to, what happens during any hurricane or natural disasters, that the best of people show up
Yeah,
in the worst.
right.
Yeah, and here we are again, we have to make these choices, these observations, and we say this is right, this is wrong.
Mhm.
Maybe that's part of the big lesson for us as humans, to have it presented to us, and we can say, yeah, if I really want to follow, justice and the right and caring and cooperation and so forth, then I have to make some judgment calls. And here is a situation that says, no, this is wrong. But that's also why we have jails,
Right.
right? This is,
Well,
this happens enough
technically, I mean,
technically.
we got a whole nother jail system than, the jail. I'd say like incarceration for, treatment and then going back into society as healthier. That's a great system to have. I don't think everybody has it. We could do better in our country with that, but
Hmm.
that is, yeah, that's what it's for. So
Right, right.
just have a
Yeah.
timeout. They need some special skills introduced,
Uh-huh. Right, right.
because it's dangerous. It's dangerous for
Hmm.
other people. So,
Exactly. And there's some ethical questions about that too, where someone, let's say in their uh, 30s, they do a terrible crime, they kill somebody, they get caught, they go to jail, and then they're in there for life, let's say. And then basically, even though it's not maybe the best place to hang out, you're taken care of for the rest of your life.
right.
Right. And there's some people are just saying, well, is that really a punishment? And others are saying, well, we don't really want to punish, we want to rehabilitate them. But if they're
Right,
not going to come
reform.
out,
Right. And
so
what is being done to really rehabilitate them? That's a question
exactly.
that's gonna fall on
Exactly.
the
And if
system.
they're there for life and they're not going to come out, so they're going to be rehabilitated and they're going to interact within the
Right,
jail cell in a positive manner, maybe,
right.
but like um, some famous, criminals,
Mm,
that, had to be there. I mean, there's always that questions where later on they've come up with some new evidence and they say, oh boy, did we make a mistake? And this person has been in jail for sometimes decades. We're very sorry about that, but we made a mistake. I mean, that is enough to say, well, maybe the whole justice system needs an overhaul. But when you have someone like Charles Manson,
mm,
who is this is a dangerous, violent person. He's got a little swastika that he cut on the top of his forehead.
yeah,
It's like, well, they took care of him for his whole life.
right.
And maybe, the death sentence, just like, okay, well, you made a couple of wrong moves there, and I don't think you're going to do any much good in the world. So why don't you try it next time around?
Yeah, I thought that that was reserved the death penalty was reserved for folks that they felt were no longer, or they weren't gonna be able to rehabilitate.
Right,
So, that also
right.
depends on the state.
Yeah, exactly, right, and that's been a point of debate for as long as the jail system has been in act,
Yeah.
where people making these judgment calls about incarceration, rehabilitation, but if you're really a dangerous person, wherever you're at, maybe it's time to go.
Maybe,
And maybe,
or get promoted.
right, get promoted.
Right.
Welcome to the spirit world. Yeah.
That's what we wanted.
We're going to release you. You're going to be very
Well,
happy in a very short time.
you know, when you put it that way, it might, in some cases it would be beneficial, I would say. But again, I think what's happening now is the Ramirez brothers. And I have never looked into this case because I typically stick to cult things, things dealing with cults, as far as true crime goes. But there's been documentaries and there's been movies. So how, now they're saying, take a look at this evidence. We might, you should let us out, possibly. People are saying, yes, consider it. So
Exactly, right, right. Especially
depending on
since I think they
the,
were teenagers when they killed their parents, and the reaction at the time, of course, was like, "Oh, that's the most terrible thing that one can do," kill your
that's
parents.
changed. That opinion
Yes,
has changed.
that's right. Yeah,
And I think they're taking a look at the quality of the care that the children were
exactly. And when
receiving.
was this, retribution, or was it a reaction of abuse?
Right.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
but they've had quite a lot of, and like Manson, because they had Helter Skelter with Manson, they've had movies come out, and we are in a time where people do glorify these things. And while it may come off in a way as being a sympathetic thing, or yeah, I mean, if there is a possibility they could be innocent, of course we should do the right thing and reconsider. But how much of this is influenced by the movies that we've seen, that because we're the the type of horror flicks I've seen, they've just gotten worse, and just the
Oh my
depths of the
goodness.
human, our psyches are crazy. So they've only
Exactly.
gotten,
They can be so violent.
yeah, but there are
Yeah.
people who are like really sympathetic, and especially when it's older cases, it's like a special interest, and people are intrigued, but they're not seeing the justice side of it, as far as like how many people could actually be innocent and not have a documentary about them, So,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
but yeah, but like with this case, it's like it was introduced to me as, "Hey, there's a movie about it." And I was like, well, I'm not gonna watch the movie because I feel like that's gonna distort, but then again, just with the information that we get, and I heard with AI and tech, that has been how information, misinformation has been spreading so far, is everybody has a phone. I've seen people like they're sitting on the dirt floor and they're in their hut or whatever, but they still have a phone, maybe a
Right.
family
Yeah.
phone. So when they're getting videos of our political candidates that have been generated, and they're available in all these languages and this and that, that's the image they have of what's happening in our nation.
Right.
But that
Yeah.
misinformation is so dangerous, because I mean, you already know that, but it's even more so now because it's in a very digestible way. Now it's like we're used to seeing videos, we're used to seeing footage of things. So it's so easy to connect like that's real, without having a thought of like, is it AI? Is it generated? So
Right. Yeah. And so, bottom line, especially with all of these ethical issues and real life stories and so forth, real life crimes,
yeah,
that AI is just another tool,
yeah,
and it can be used for the good and it can be used for the bad.
right. Yeah, and these folks that have the platform, they're they have a real responsibility, as we know. Anytime we have the platform, to be honest, or it's so harmful. Like all of this is like so divisive on every single level, because truth is something we really, really need.
Oh
And
my
it's
goodness.
and
Right.
there's so much doubt all the time that, even it's not just on a systemic thing, but even in homes with domestic stuff, there people are really struggling to get along. It's like it's so harmful. So I hope that, overall we learn and maybe teach AI
Mm-hmm.
so that the input of this knowledge of, whatever we're learning, putting your book in there is going to teach AI
Mm-hmm.
about
Mm-hmm.
how we would like things to go. And maybe if a robot decides to go rogue, it's gonna start farming. You know?
Right, good, good. Let it kill the soil.
Right? Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I can totally imagine, like, when you think about the innovations in chemistry and in medicines and all of the research, kind of like that, a lot of it is trial and error.
Right. Yeah.
Really,
Classic.
combination of solutions and also in genetic materials and so forth. Like, but if AI can just like compare, pros and cons, we could probably save a lot of time. And I think, the large pharmaceutical companies and the um, genetic engineering companies, they know that, and I'm sure it's being used in that way. So I can be quite hopeful, of the innovations and breakthroughs that can come from that.
Yeah. And we have to take advantage of it because it's only a matter of time before they figure out a way to charge us.
Right, right, yeah. Yeah,
So get
it's
all of
being
the use
given
out of
to
it.
us to use right now, but no, yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah, they're once they figure it out, because I mean it's so, and even the programs say always double check. Like even the program when you use it, they say, you know, they give us the developers kept these things in mind for the most part, and a lot of them include those disclaimers of, you know, be kind, don't plagiarize, just do your best, and that's all we can really do. Some people just, we're not at the same level when it comes to the right and wrong thing. I don't know.
Uh-huh, so
It's
true.
relative.
Well, I,
It's so
I can
relative.
say that, like in creating a YouTube video,
Mhm.
um, probably I'm thinking it's only been in the last 6 months or so that as I'm editing and uploading a video, it's one of the key things up front that they're asking, did AI in any way help you with this?
Right, yeah.
Yeah, and then you have to check the box.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so it's a thing right there too, because
Mhm.
maybe on that level, they're wanting to say, or it's kind of a filter of what's going to be out there and true or made up, thinking
Right.
that, AI is just going to make it up, even though any book of fiction it's all made up too.
Right.
But when it comes just like to data and facts, I could imagine that it's one way for them to uh, police it, as it were. But
Mhm.
it also reminds me, I think that they do it now more electronically, but they used to have this form for foreigners when they come into the United States, to fill out coming into the US, are you a criminal? Do
Mhm.
you have a gun? These are the questions, it's like,
Mhm.
and I was thinking even at the, first came across it, and we as American citizens, we don't have to fill this out. This is what all the foreigners have got to fill out, a long list. And like, were you ever a communist? I remember that was one of the questions that was years ago. I haven't seen one lately, but just a list. And I'm thinking, really, if you are a tried and true devout criminal, you will just lie,
Right.
right?
Yes, you would.
No, I don't have a gun.
Wink, wink. Who admits to being I've never met someone who said that they were a communist. It's never come up, but I can imagine the person would not,
Oh,
especially
yeah,
coming
yeah,
here. Of
especially if they're
course,
thinking, if sign
yeah.
this, and if this is going to stop me from my, American holiday, I will lie,
Mm,
right?
yeah.
It's almost like, I'll tell the truth here. No, if you're really a criminal, you don't care.
If you're a good criminal,
You
you're gonna
can do
get
whatever
away
you
with
want.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that we've got a stricter process now, I think. I think.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we've covered a lot of territory, I must admit. And I'll show a couple of my images in the book on utopia that I'm writing, and I'm going to put them in my book. I feel, fine with that.
Hmm.
And those chapters, that was kind of made up by AI, I'm going to look at that and say, yeah, it wasn't exactly what I wanted to say, but it did come up with a couple of new, interesting ideas. And
Yeah,
so why not use it?
I think you should. I think that it's it's great to have new ideas. What
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Mm-hmm.
So, and it's based on your vision. So that's one thing
Yeah,
about the programs. They are going to go. They're still programs. They're going to do what we tell them to do. So
that's true, right? And if I'm talking about the utopia anyway, in a world of the future, anything that we're just getting introduced about AI today,
mhm,
in 100 years, wow. I mean, it's going to be so integrated in so many other ways, plus other technologies too,
mhm,
that it'll be like a non-question whether we should use or not use AI.
right. It's just automatic now. It's on everything. I feel like it's um helping things along for the most part. There's except for the meddlesome things that are always going to happen,
Hmm.
which we're going to learn from. Some of us are going to learn. Most of us, hopefully, most of us will learn from. Um,
Yeah, yeah. I must admit, like when it comes to like Facebook or some social media, when I come across something and it's an image and I go, I don't think that's true. I will sometimes say something, and I'll just say AI, exclamation point, just to let the sender know that we'll be careful, especially if it's purporting, to be the truth or to be
mm.
the photograph of the year.
And I've seen it with AI, and I've also seen it with just regular people, where they've actually, like with FEMA, the misinformation that went around from FEMA was actually from a tweet or whatever those things are that are from X,
That's
but
right
that
from it. Yeah, yeah.
circulated. So that was an actual person that took time. Granted, it was
Hmm.
completely the account was not remotely. It was a meme account. That's all they posted was jokes, but it went viral and it was used as a reference. So even that can just be checked going
Hmm.
to the FEMA site. They were very clear about that being misinformation. So
Hmm.
at that point, we didn't even trust the FEMA. We didn't trust FEMA as that.
That's right, which is officially there to help everybody. But
Right.
as you probably know, they've got full-time like Russians and Chinese um, programmers creating content
Yes.
and
Yes.
passing it off and using social media and other ways just to disrupt this country.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So it's good that you say something because usually if you actually click on the person that's sharing that, it's usually some generic account that's all they're sharing is these wacky pictures. But the
Hmm.
average person doesn't look. So
Mm.
it's good to let your friends know and let people know so that they can be able to keep an eye out for it. Not everybody has the eye.
Exactly,
I
right.
was like, I've never seen a bird fly with that many babies on it. And those weren't babies.
Right, right, flying. Yeah, this is
They
just not
were
going to happen.
they were
Yeah.
like adolescent owls with fur with not fur with feathers. They were and I'm like, this is
Absolutely wrong. This is not
it is
true.
just not remotely true. It was cute.
Yeah,
It reminded me
it
kind
was
of like
cute. Yeah.
you ever see Lisa Frank, the artist Lisa Frank. Oh
No.
wow. That was when I was a kid, but she's very like is there rainbows and beautiful animals and it's very fairy world type thing. It's beautiful stuff. So that those images are kind of like that, I guess. But there's no artist. It's just random. I've seen some scary
Exactly.
things.
It's
I've seen some scary.
misinformation.
God,
That's
I've seen.
right. And if it is like this is a fairy tale, this is a story, this is my fancy, then okay, great. But like if no, this is, this, won the photography award.
No,
No,
can't
I
do
didn't.
that.
Yeah, it's a
Can't do
lie.
that. Yeah,
Yeah,
and I've seen some
yeah,
people get dark with it, just like you said, with everything else. There's a darkness that comes with the art form as well, so hopefully we can just learn to do the right thing.
yeah, yeah.
Please.
Just and periodically, I also have in my files a picture of Abraham Lincoln with a quote from him saying, "You really can't trust everything you see on the internet." And I have that picture and I just send that out periodically just to let people know. It's like, of course he didn't write that.
Okay. Thank you for sending those reminders out. That's really important. Love your
Right, right.
comments that you send. Yeah, it snaps you back to reality, definitely, because we do have a tendency to just be in another world, a process. It's like that process, the conveyor belt type thing, and we're in autopilot, and just
Oh,
consuming. So
right.
yeah,
And that's another way that people can just pass on, information if it's like a process, like next, next,
right,
next. And so they're not really, giving it a worthy look over to find out, is this true? Is this not true?
right, yeah.
Yeah,
So it's good to reflect.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, my dear, I'm going to bring this recording to an end, but
Alrighty.
always lovely to talk with you.
You too.